Hello and welcome to another edition of Conversation Changers. Artificial intelligence is one of those things that's becoming an indispensable part of daily life for many of us around the world. There are the tools that we use at work or school like ChatGPT, Gemini, and Perplexity, what we call the large language models, or LLMs. It's also being used to transform shopping, logistics, financial services, and basically everything in business. And, of course, as we've seen on the battlefields of Ukraine and Gaza, AI is now a tool of war. And AI is also having a transformative effect on culture. It's no big deal now when we hear one of those AI voices or one of those fake Sora videos that passes through our feed when we're doom scrolling Instagram and TikTok. But while many aspects of artificial intelligence are nothing short of amazing, there are also a lot of new problems this technology is creating, which we're only now beginning to address. After all, AI is like anything else. The quality of the outputs depends entirely on the quality of the inputs. And not everyone is being treated the same in this new era. Last year, the Institute of Tropical Medicine and the University of Oxford conducted a study that shed light on the limitations of AI in combating racist stereotypes. The researchers tasked the AI tool Midjourney Bot 5.1 with generating images of Black African doctors providing care to white children. In more than 300 attempts, the doctors were predominantly white, and the patients always had dark instead of light skin. Other prompts resulted in images featuring exaggerated and culturally offensive imagery. Part of the reason this happened is because the people who trained these large language models embedded their own biases into the system. But as with everything in this space, it's changing very fast, and a new generation of artists in Africa and other regions are challenging these norms with groundbreaking uses of this new technology. Malik Afegbua is a Nigerian fashion designer, filmmaker, artist, and creative technologist. He is also the CEO of Slick City Media, and of course, a Salzburg Global Fellow who is redefining the global perception of African storytelling through AI-powered art. While he's been in the creative space for many years now, he burst onto the international scene in 2023 with his Elder series that featured AI-generated portraits of confident, elderly African models dressed in vibrant, runway-ready fashion. It's wonderful to have you on the program. When we talk about some of these challenges in AI that we addressed in the intro, and we talk about some of the issues of representation, can you give us a sense of what the situation is today, in particularly as it relates to Africans, and we talked about some of the more prejudicial views?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. You know that one of the biggest issues in the AI space right now is the bias. And that's something I talk about a lot because it's very real. AI systems learn a lot from data that often reflects historical and cultural biases. So when those systems generate images and make decisions, they tend to repeat the same patterns, of misrepresentation, especially when it comes to Africa or people of African descent. And that's based off of the data that it's been trained on. So when we have to create stuff, we always have to refine that data or find a way to make it understand what our cultures and narrative actually what it looks like. It's getting better, right now because some people have been intentional about it, but on the general picture, it's still very, very much, biased.
And how do you go about changing something like this? Companies like Facebook or Meta and Google and OpenAI, these are huge companies and they're training on massive volumes of data. How do you, as an artist in Nigeria, impact companies this large and technologies this, in some sense, overwhelming?
For the companies, I would say there needs to be a level of inclusion of people of cultural descent especially if the data is being used. How is it being used, and what is are there guardrails? Who is, monitoring that data, or how it's actually being used and stuff? So that means we need to be included, or everyone that is for the global south and the likes would need to be included with that, because the majority of, AI systems are trained from the global north, not the global south. And the things that were trained from the global south are mostly misrepresented data and, biased data or beyond that I also say the responsibility is with us as creatives, as human beings, to put out intentional data because AI trains in everything. It's garbage in, garbage out. So we need to tell intentional stories that reflect the future we want to live in. As an artist, as I literally just generally just make sure your data represents who you are, where you're from, and not just random, things that you put out there.
Now, companies like Google and others say that they are addressing some of these problems. How do you think that they're doing? Do you feel that in the past couple of years, since tools like Gemini and OpenAI have launched, that the representation has gotten better and that the depictions of Africans in generative AI are improving? Or is there still a lot more work that needs to be done?
I mean, Google were the first to actually get it right when it comes to representing Africans, and that's a no-brainer because they've got our data, literally. So like they're doing a lot better than the rest in terms of that representation of cultures of, the nuances there. It's not really that. It's still this stereotypical, you know, references or biases are still there, but you could see the effort, compared to some other ones that would mistake countries for, cultures and all of that. So yeah, I have to see that change. I'm not going to lie, but I feel like it'd be a lot better still.
And how do you think this is being received in Nigeria, for example, where AI technology is increasingly common and popular? In fact, African countries are registering as some of the most enthusiastic users of some of the large language models. So the work that you're doing certainly has an audience, and there's a young generation of consumers who want to see some of this pioneering new art. But talk to us about the reception that you're getting and other creators using AI generated art are getting in, say, Nigeria, West Africa, and other regions across the continent.
Yeah, for Nigeria, for instance, we're mostly curious about, what role we play in that space and how this could amplify our regular workflows. Personally, I've been experimenting with AI longer than, you know, it became a facade, a buzzword, generative AI, and I've been experimenting, I've been researching. But right now, a lot of creators, a lot of people are finding ways it could help them in terms of imaginations, in terms of speeding up the pipeline, in terms of recreating new narratives as well. Because for the first time in history, the barrier to creativity has been lowered. So anyone could tell stories, anyone could, think about a story right now and put it out there. But there's a caveat there because most of the time when this technology comes out, we are the last to receive it. Most of the time we have to use VPNs to access some of these technologies. We still do today. There's still certain, AI systems that are not going here that we still have to use VPNs to do. But major, and again, another problem that I would say with that is we're being charged more, I feel, than we're supposed to be from here. We pay dollars. We don't pay, like local currency, and that we have to pay in dollars. So there are many constraints. And just imagine somewhere that has low access to the internet, not to even talk about access to a card to pay in dollars and all of that. So we need to think about all these things. But I would take me to a space where I feel like we need to own our own technology here. So we're in control of that narrative and, all of that.
But how do you do that when the technology now, the scale of it is so enormous and the costs are huge, and access to that kind of capital can be difficult for African governments and companies who oftentimes have to pay a premium, a penalty, if you will, from borrowers just because it's Africa? How do you do that if you say we have to own our own technology when access to that capital is restricted?
Well, I mean, there is access to capital. It's just where is that capital going to and what is it being used for? All of that. I don't have the intricate details, but I know for a fact that little drops of water makes an ocean. We have to start from somewhere. We have to just, I mean, first of all, correct that data thing, collect the data, uh, refine, tag properly. Then we'll talk about data centers, talk about how to train that data because it's the process. If we have the right infrastructures or funds, and we've got the funds, we don't have to borrow, although we actually have the funds to do it. It's just is it being directed and diverted to that space. Um, I understand that, yes, the big tech will always find a way into different countries, do different things. They help in certain ways as well. So most of the time, the government looks to the bigger tech. But I'm in a position where I'd say I want them to look inwards to think about how can we start to generate our own AI systems so we could innovate from inwards rather than looking outwards to innovate inwards, if that makes any sense. So personally, I'm doing it. 6 months ago, I set out to let me start something. Let me create an African large language model. But let me start from somewhere. And that somewhere for me is collecting that data. I'm looking for data that has never been captured before. I'm going to spaces that have never been captured. We scan, we archive, we collect. Beyond that, we do interviews with people that are age 80 and above for oral history. We speak to historians, we speak to scholars, we speak to, poets to get certain things, certain sort of data that are not biased, that represent certain forms of art or people or demograph. When we have that, we store that here, then we can start to train your system. So that way we could create solutions that are specific to us, to our body type, our skin tone, everything. We don't have to try to make it work. We understand from the inside out, so that's how I see it. So we have to start from somewhere. Personally, I'm not a government, but I'm doing something, so I feel like the moment we start to do something, then it could become a chain reaction. Many sorts.
That's fascinating. Tell us about some of these repositories of data that you're trying to cull into this space. Where do you go and find them? What are they? Give us a little of the details of that.
One of it, so I kind of coin them into several different projects to make it exciting for me to do because I'm a creative and I just don't want to just go capture all of that. So what I'm doing, one of the projects is called the Legacy Link. A Legacy Link is part of it is when I capture stories from people that aged 80 and above, lived in a certain time, through certain periods of war, of famine, of, good, the bad, all of that. And from their perspective, from their, point of view, I, capture the stories from different people as well. Same story from different people as well. But it's not just about the story that I'm capturing. I'm also trying to find out what life was like 80, 60, 70 years ago, in correlation to what life is like today, in projection to what life would be 60, 70 years from now, because that's how we could build our future when we know where we're coming from and understanding certain things that are actually lost in time. And beyond that, I'm making up our ancestors available for the next generation. This is a part in history that will happening. And because we have AI systems right now, create digital twins of these people that I've created, feed an AI large language model with everything that I learned from them. So that way you could ask them questions and they respond to you with credible knowledge in right. Imagine talking to your ancestor, asking about what happened in the Biafra the war phrases and he's responding to you. So we have great installations of holograms in public spaces that you could interact with. That's the goal anyway in the future. That you can interact with, ask questions like go leave an encyclopedia that has factual history of what your culture is about and all of that. So the idea is to go as broad as possible, then create like a template that every other country could replicate. And it's not just an African thing, it's a world thing that anyone can replicate. That way where we're preserving our histories properly. That because AI systems right now could hallucinate and change a lot of things in the future. We have no clue with the kind of future we're going to step into in the digital space, and a lot of things could be lost. So this is the way that I'm preserving it. So that is one. But beyond that, I'm also going to physical spaces that they don't even speak English and stuff, and collaborating with other people as well to talk to the chiefs, train them about AI systems, let them understand technology first of all, collect some data from them, artifacts that they have that have never been captured before, scan them. And most of these people sometimes they'll tell me that they don't want to share their secrets because their great grandfather said they have to keep their secrets within them. But I now made them understand that if you don't share your secret with me and the world, someone else will share that, tell the wrong story about what he thinks this artwork is or this artifact is of what your culture is. So you have to tell that story. So they were open. They were, oh yeah, they never thought about it that way because they don't want to be misrepresented. So I got the access to their stories. I did a virtual reality, capture 3D scans, oral histories, all of that, physical spaces. So now we have that data. And this are monarchies that have been spanned down 500 years that I've never even heard of before. So in other spaces as well, I go to speak to, people, physical spaces, historians, just to ask, questions, capture that data. I scan materials, try to understand symbols in CBD, use that to train AI systems as well. But that's just in my own small way of doing it. And I think the team is as well.
Yeah, and you're doing this, I presume, in all the different languages, say in Nigerian, Hausa, Igbo, Yoruba, in some of those all those different languages, in order to capture the diversity of the stories.
Exactly. And also the sub languages as well that I know that we don't really hear. Like we could have a village with 200 different languages. What about them? So it's not just about the three major, languages. So we go beyond that to go deeper and deeper. So everyone is kind of a part of that narrative. And I'm also trying to be ethical with everything that I do as well. Try to create a system whereby if I use your data for anything, you're in some way gaining from it. Because I'm not just taking from you, I'm also finding a way to give back to you. So that's why I said it's a long process, it's expensive. It's funded by myself and my company. So I have to take my time. But I'm hoping that, okay, while I'm doing this, I can have conversations with other people. And maybe when you see what I'm doing, you could collaborate and you could support or whatever. But from my point of view is, let me just start. Because I know the problems I have, I know what to do. Let me just do it.
Yeah, this question of passing stories down from generation to generation is so interesting. And when we compare colonialism and the trauma of colonialism in Africa, for example, to, say, Southeast Asia, one of the differentiating factors was that the language barrier was never broken in Southeast Asia. So in Vietnam, in Cambodia, they got to keep their language. So there was a continuity from one generation to another. We have a situation today in 2025 in a country like Benin in West Africa, where only 20% of the population speaks the national language. I mean, the idea that French is the language in Benin is ridiculous when 80% of the people don't even speak that language. So the communication links between generations were broken because of colonialism. And these foreign languages interrupted and disrupted the transmission of information from one generation to another. And a lot of scholars have suggested that this is what's contributed to some of the fracturing of Africa, is that we haven't been able to see this transmission of information. It seems like you're using AI and these stories as a way to heal some of that.
Exactly. And the best way that I can as well, because I think about the whole thing, just like you say, I would ask myself, why do they teach certain subjects in certain languages and not, local dialects for some people? And it's all everything you've said right now. And the only thing I could do is use technology to kind of amplify what we've lost or to reimagine. Another project that I'm working on is called Rememory. Rememory is reimagining historical sites, and languages that has been lost to natural disasters, to war, to tide, to colonialism, and all of that, with virtual reality, with 3D, or with artificial intelligence. So we create like a 3D space. We reimagine a 3D space with AI, or via, even if we don't have pictures to represent it, we imagine what it could possibly look like, or what languages were spoken in that time, what the communal living was like. So just to train or teach the younger ones where you're coming from, what is lost, and where you could actually be. We've got buildings. In the past, we used to have buildings in Nigeria that you don't need air conditioning. It was built in a way that's it's self-sustaining, like you had. You don't need it's in the winter it's warm, in the summer it's cool. With mud houses, but we've lost all of that. The architecture. Most of the houses today look the same, and that's just how time happened. So we have to find a way to preserve certain knowledge, certain cultures, and thankfully we have technology to do that. So why don't we use that? And that's what I'm doing the best way that I can anyway.
Yeah. Now, are you focusing predominantly on Nigeria, West Africa, or the continent as a whole?
I'm starting with Nigeria because that's where I have the most access to. And I'm trying to create like a template that anyone could copy and anyone could just replicate and use that from wherever you're from. That's what I'm doing. Because for me, it's not for profit. It's not. I'm not doing it because I'm trying to be a billionaire or anything. I'm just doing it because I feel that's the right thing to do, and it's a problem I'm trying to solve. Because I don't want my grandkids to be lost or to be looking for some information. And today, I find certain information. I have to go deeper and deeper because they were not captured. I have to do like loads of research to find it. And I don't want that to happen. I want data to be accessible, to be there to anyone could learn something. And so all the problems that I'm facing today is what I'm trying to solve for the next generation.
Malik, we close every show with the same question. What part of the conversation do you want to change? What part of AI and Africa and the discourse do you think should be different?
Oh, I feel like we need to be more first of all, we need to own our technology. Definitely. That is a conversation that would never change. We need to own our technology. We need to think about building infrastructure and innovating from there. Then we need to use technology to solve problems. We need to understand, especially from where I'm from, that we don't need any permission to make any change. We can do that. Tell intentional stories, you know, like understand where you're coming from so you know where you're going. So intentional stories would help with that to create an aspirational future for you. So I always say your mindset is everything. How you think about yourself and the people around you changes everything, and the future of that. So make it a positive thing, make it an aspirational thing, and every other thing will follow through. Yep.
Malik, the work you're doing is inspiring. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us and share some of your fascinating insights. Malik Afegbua is a Nigerian fashion designer, filmmaker, artist, creative technologist, and of course, a Salzburg Global Fellow. Malik, thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
We'll put some of the links to his amazing work in the show notes, and so that you can check him out. And we highly, highly recommend that you follow Malik's works. And that'll do it for this edition of Conversation Changers. Thank you again for joining us. We'll be back again next time with another fascinating discussion. Until then, on behalf of everybody at Salzburg Global around the world, thank you so much for listening and for watching.
In an age of polarized voices and reinforced views, be part of changing the conversation. Follow us on social media and visit us at salzburgglobal.org.